Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 0.5 of our summary of exploring a 10K. I'm excited to share with you today item number 7 from a 10K. Item number 7 is management's discussion and analysis of financial condition and results of operations. Most people refer to this as the MD&A. That's management's discussion and analysis. What this section includes is a summary of management's opinions, management's interpretations, and management's exploration of important information within the financial statements. So we'll take a look through that for Tesla. We're going to head back to them again, and we'll talk through item 7 and item 7A in this episode. So here we go. Okay, now we're back in the Tesla financial statements. This is their 10K filing still, and we're going to start today with item number 7. So you can see that most of the things that we've touched on before take up maybe one page of the filing, with the exception of the risk factors, which take up 14. The MD&A in this one takes up 12, and so that's a significant section. That's not nearly as big as the financial statements themselves, but there's a lot of goodies in here and a lot of points of information that can be really important to get an understanding of the company. So let's jump in. There are some disclosures that start at the beginning here. It tells you their filing date. It also tells you need to make sure you're reading this in conjunction with the financial statements, because what my management is doing here is offering their additional analysis. Like the financial statements, the way that they're required to be is very cut and dry. This required by GAAP. Management's discussion allows them to provide additional information, additional interpretation. In fact, it starts right here at the very beginning where the Tesla management highlights that their mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And so that's exactly what this first section starts with, right? It's an overview, and it includes the 2023 highlights. They tell you exactly how many things they produced, how many were delivered. You can see they built up a little bit of inventory, 40,000 cars or so. They talked about improving their facilities. They talk about all the products that they've developed or that they've put out into the marketplace. And they continue to highlight a wide variety of pieces of information that can be relevant to users of the financial statements. And so this is a super high level summary of the financial data that's included in the financial statements below. A little bit more exciting part of the MD&A is this section where management highlights their opportunities, challenges, and uncertainties for 2024. And so you can see that for Tesla, they highlight what cars are being made in what factory, whether or not they're still working, whether or not they've got the pilot production of their semi happening in Nevada. So there's a lot of information in here that can help you to learn more and more about the entity itself. They also highlight different areas of potential issues, right? Demand, sales, deliveries, infrastructure. What they're trying to do, they're reducing costs. They're looking to generate demand through brand awareness and marketing stuff. But they do highlight, like, it might not happen because this industry is cyclical. There could be a whole lot of different things that could impact whether or not they're able to meet their goals. So there's a lot of information in here. I'm not going to read it all, but they're very much on the forefront talking about those potential problems. In fact, here's a good one. You can see it because it's highlighted here, but there's a North American charging standard, and that charging standard, their superchargers comply with that, And other automotive manufacturers have announced their adoption of this and agreements to utilize superchargers. That gives Tesla the opportunity to continue to expand their own markets. So um, they can talk about things that are like this very individualized detail that will help you to understand the business that much more. They also talk about critical accounting policies. This, I think, is a very interesting section of the MD&A because they're highlighting for you, like, here's where we had to make a choice, because it's a important estimate. Estimates are really where management can imprint their own beliefs and assumptions on the financial statements themselves. Day-to-day transactional activity, there's not a lot that they're going to be able to do to significantly influence those. Estimates, though, have a wide ability to be able to, there's some flexibility with how estimates can be interpreted and how they can be prepared. They talk through all that with relation to revenue recognition, to their inventory valuation. This is a huge one. Because they're looking at how they value things that need to be written off. They talk very specifically about whether or not they're going to be able to sell their products at future prices. So if you'll think about recently, the Tesla lowered the market prices of a lot of their cars, and had they done that, but those prices been less than their original cost, they would have to revalue the inventory at the net realizable value, how much they can sell it for, how much they can realize in a sell. And that may result in a write-down. And so understanding the policy around that and how they're intending to do that can be really helpful in evaluating what their financials look like. This section, I think, is probably one of their biggest potential liabilities, because it's the energy, information, and the generation and storage systems that they sell are for 10, 25 years. It's a really, really long warranty window. And because of that, there's a lot of uncertainty about what the warranty issues will be. And so management has to make estimates, and they even mention here that they're uncertain about exactly what those longer term liabilities could potentially be. And so they provide as much clarity as they can here. And then they talk also about the .com, because there are a variety of stock options that are issued, a purchase plan. There are loads of things that go into evaluating what the compensation expense is going to be related to those types of plans. And so it looks like they even include some of it as cost of sales. So they highlight for you where it's going on the income statement as well right here. Some of this is going to be repeated in the financial statements themselves. Again, it's an add-on, but there is some interpretation that needs to be included as well. They also talk about their deferred income taxes and some of the realizability about that. This section can be a really interesting read because taxes payable and deferred tax assets and things of that nature can get to be really complicated. The next section of the MD&A is just a high-level summary of operations. Some of this may be broken down in more detail or in the way that management looks at their overall financial information, and that can result in providing someone who's looking at the financial statements with extra information to understand what's going on within the entity. So there's a lot of information that can go there. They also talk about explicitly what those things are. So you, as the user of the financials, can understand a little bit more of what's going on and where these things are being generated. And they also talk then about what caused some of those things. So this can be some of the interesting stuff, as well as they're comparing 2023 to the prior year. And they do that for a variety of different parts of the financials. So they did it for revenue, they do it for costs. And there's a lot of information that goes into this, a lot of summary that's provided, and a lot of what caused this, what were the big factors that increased or decreased these different types of costs or different types of revenue. And they do that for each of their segments as well. You can see they spend a lot on R&D, and so they talk a little bit about what that means. test manufacturing, engineering, prototyping, and the professional services and stuff around that. Like some of the stuff for their Cybertruck and their AI and other programs. Like there's a lot that gets included in R&D, and they're trying to highlight for you what that is here. Looks like they even had some restructuring expenses, maybe other expenses, so they highlight for you what those things are and give some interpretation as to what's going on there as well. Then they talk about where they stand from a liquidity perspective. So a little bit of interpretation of what their cash flows are looking like, what their cash requirements are, and then their sources of liquidity as well. So there's a lot of interpretation that goes into the MD&A and a lot of information that you can find here as well. They also summarize any of the recent accounting pronouncements, very similar to some of the other sections that we taught, the legal section that we talked about last time. This one might just be kicked out to the 10K to say, hey, here's our policies. They're in note 2. And that's the MD&A. Included right after the MD&A is item 7A. Item 7A is this qualitative and quantitative disclosures about market risk. So the company is required to highlight for potential investors like specific risks and risk areas. And the only one that they've included in theirs is foreign currency risk, because they are purchasing and selling in other currencies as well. And so they have some exposure to exchange rate risk because they're using different currency. So because of that, they talk about what that means and kind of what their exposure is overall. They also tell you that they don't hedge for currency risk, and this is something that will show up in the way that their financials are presented and where the losses or gains associated with this can be found in the actual financial statements. Thank you for joining me today and watching the video. See you in the next one.